Hello everybody out there that's watching this video in the future or whatever platform you might be working on. Mostly right now it's been YouTube. It's been YouTube for a long time, but thank you for watching all of these videos. There's plenty more to look on there, and if you would like, you can connect to us on Discord, you can connect to us with Facebook, and we'd love to see your shining faces here at the sermons as well. Please join us for our full moon rituals or our dark moon rituals, basically our SBOTs that we do throughout the month, both in Denver and in Colorado Springs. So my name is Andrews, and I am part of the Church of Witchcraft. Specifically, I'm the Hierophant of the Church of Witchcraft. I'm basically making sure everything kind of stays on the rails and that we have some guided direction with the rest of our clergy. And with that said, the Church of Witchcraft is here to revitalize witchcraft under a flexible common practice. Often that looks like developing a common narrative, so we can sort of speak some of the similar languages and start learning how to increase our potency for witchcraft. And however that shows up for you. Your orthodoxy and orthopraxy is going to look quite different from one another. Sometimes you might share the same things, some things will be similar, but we're going to talk more about this in this topic specifically. I'm finally able to talk to you about this. So we originally talked about Theurgy and Theurgy and its concepts, and we're going to revisit some of that as well. And we're also going to look at now, finally, the second half of this, which is Thaumaturgy. So I practice celestial witchcraft, and this really helped me understand what I was doing within my practice, right? So I needed to know, so why do we break these things down? The reason that we need this is because, like the originating point, the first altar, the you of yourself, you want to find out how you activate these things, right? And it's just like a magnifying glass. You are that magnifying glass refracting that point. So just like you can heat up a ray of light from ambient light in the sun, when you get a magnifying glass, you can heat it up and burn stuff. Similarly, you yourself are that first altar, that first originating point. And that point, then with a more directed focus, is going to provide better clarity to your witchcraft, which increases the potency and lets you kind of know why you're doing this. Some people discuss whether or not witchcraft comes in as either an art form or a tool, or if it's a philosophy, or if it's a religion, and it's kind of all of those things. And it really depends on how we want to address our witchcraft. You know, if religion isn't your bag for witchcraft, don't do it. You can use this as a skill set along with a whole bunch of other things. But still, in any of these, knowing why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and what it means to you is going to be our first iteration of understanding to improve our own witchcraft as we practice. So again, thank you YouTube and whatever video platform I might be watching this on as well. Thaumaturgy. Finally, I can stop, edging around this thing, because I've been sort of alluding to this as well over the last, couple of months here. Last month we talked about Theurgy, which is up here, and our egoless self. So we're trying to diminish our ego. I'm going to break that down a little bit more so it's a little more accessible, because ego can come in a lot of different flavors. And then now we're going to be looking at thaumaturgy. Our thaumaturgy aspects are going to be relevant to more ego practice. Sometimes the word apotheosis is thrown around here for thaumaturgy, and I'll go ahead and write that down. So we have thaumaturgy. So apotheosis, and this is sometimes known as henosis. Henosis. Losing my marker there. All right, so apotheosis. What the heck is apotheosis? All these fancy words: theurgy, thaumaturgy, apotheosis, henosis. Apotheosis, God image, God's self. And God's self is not necessarily, so this is where we start getting into some distinctions. So theurgy, does that make you more of a god? No. The goal is to make yourself connect with all that is, the alpha and omega, the divinity, the magic, whatever it is you practice. Theurgy is about reducing your desires and aiming towards a less desire-based functionality. So the ego that I'm speaking of is not just the I, me, mine, but also the ego of what we have in our life, the materialism in our life. None of this is an argument, by the way, or a position that materialism is a negative. I don't care one way or the other. If you love material stuff, go forth and be materialistic. Do all the hedonistic stuff. I'm great with that. If you don't want to do that, and you don't want to consume your life with that, check out some theurgy, right? One of the biggest useful pieces of this, of removing your desire, our desire is going to be a point of friction a lot in our lives. So we have this desire. bigger houses, bigger cars. Or maybe you don't even have a house. Maybe you're in an apartment and you want a house, right? Point of friction. I have to go to work. I'm sacrificing, working 3 jobs, trying to make this work, getting my credit up. All of this anxiety and all of this stress that comes from that specifically. So when you're talking this desire is not a bad thing. It's about whether or not it becomes pathological, right? Just like in psychology, DSM-5, none of those things are a problem. Frankly, everybody's in the DSM-5 at some level or another. That's basically the diagnostic and statistic manual for version 5 for psych people. Essentially, it's saying this is what constitutes these issues and whatever. All of us are in it at some level or another. But again, just like I talked about before, these are spectrums, right? Polarity. They're not duality. I'm not either or. I am somewhere amidst this whole build-out that we have, just like anything in the DSM-5. The issue is not having something in the DSM-5. The issue is not being chaos or order. The issue is when it becomes obsessive, when it becomes into our extremes and they're not balanced. And yes, this also means any of the religious stuff that you're doing. So if you're talking Christianity, for example, some of the challenges that we run into, we get extreme zealots, right? Or Wicca, for example. It's only male, it's only female. It's one of these two things. In what reality do we have, in our new reality, and also in any reality, when do we have exactly male, or exactly female, or exactly any one thing? There's no, it doesn't exist. You could try to make an argument for that, it'd be very difficult. The Church of Witchcraft specifically, we support all our LGBTQ people out there. Thank you for doing that, and all of the people that are in transition and figuring out whatever gender they're working with and all that stuff. We accept that there's 2 sexes, maybe 3 arguably, of male, female. It's just our sex binary, right? That's how the species works. But after that, gender sort of comes into your brain, and you decide what you do with that. And we support all of the lovely, strange flowers out there that we can possibly get a hold of. And that being said, it's about knowing ourselves, right? So when we're talking about these things, what is thaumaturgy? What is this apotheosis, the God self? The God self is me trying to make myself the center of everything instead of me becoming something. This is me making me something. This is the becoming. So Theurgy is the I'm going to become more of everything. Whereas this is I'm going to make this happen. I'm focused on feeding my desire, wanting to build in more desire. This is about removing or limiting some of your desire. Yes, you can take this to an absurdist extreme where if you have a desire for kenosis or lowering your ego or separating that desire, is that not desire in that of itself? The answer is yes. And the best answer that I have at the moment, or at least the best response, because I don't really have answers, I have a lot of presentations, but with this, then the question becomes really for me, what's your intent? Do you intend to be more connected to the divine, the Akashic records, the celestial, whatever it is? Or are you trying to build your own thing and make your own stuff up, which is both are valid. They also will feed into each other. So this thaumaturgic process is about developing the God self, your own egoistic stuff, feeding into those desires and letting that happen. And frankly, big surprise here, we get into contemporary witchcraft. Contemporary witchcraft, pretty much all modern witchcraft, is ordered thaumaturgy. So on the spectrum, chaos is over here, order's on this side, right? Chaos is basically, we're just going to randomly do whatever we're going to do with no plan whatsoever. We're not going to have, like, we're just going to do spells because we want to, and it doesn't really matter, and we're just making stuff up as we go, right? But that chaos can also lead to this effort. One of the things I did write on here, and this is always a fun thing to write, drugs. Drugs are one of those things that creates chaotic theurgy, separation of the self and isolating the ego self and then the physical self. This is basically a shortcut. We're not advocating that you necessarily do drugs. What we're saying is that is one effort. So to be more specific, this has to do with things like psilocybin. This has to do with you're working with ayahuasca, you're working with peyote. Those sorts of things are what we're saying is chaotic theurgy. Trying to separate my ego self to confront that and give me some better idea about my own divinity, right? So appropriate, but we're not advocating it, we're just saying that it exists. We're presenting things to you. So back to our order chaos. We're somewhere along the spectrum. Nobody's just hanging out all down here. Nobody's hanging out all the way up here. You're somewhere in this grid somewhere, and it's going to change and manifest in different ways as time goes by. So thaumaturgy is creating more of that desire, feeding into that component. Also, for those who are present here today, by all means feel free to interrupt, ask questions. We're happy to have those. This is also something that's known, so thaumaturgy, you'll hear this as wonder working, miracle working, as well as a pass-through. Really easy understanding of that. Let's take the differences between Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange, right? Scarlet Witch is hanging out probably somewhere in this realm, right? Born with the thing, can do the power, power is centered from self, and it's coming out. They're developing their own power. Doctor Strange is hanging out down here. He's having a pass-through. I get to the divine works through me, I do wonder-working miracle stuff. Thaumaturgy is also, it's named for Gregory Thaumaturgus of the 3rd century. So this is from a dude, he named this thing. Originally, these two things were in the realm of gnosis, or self-knowing from ancient Greek. That involves Anglicists, Platonists, Neoplatonists, all of that stuff. But this dude, Gregory Thaumaturgus, 3rd century, he was a saint, arguably a saint, and things worked through him. He was a miracle worker. He developed things. He made things happen, made wonderful, miraculous stuff occur. Ergo, got named after him, right? But this apotheosis is more of that center God self-desire. And again, aren't you, where's this, right? Where do these two things connect, right? Let's use the Ghostbusters reference, right? We have, not Zool, that was, what was the name? You remember who I'm talking about. It's the second Ghost, it's the first Ghostbusters. What is the name of that one? Oh, we're gonna have to look this one up. But basically, that person is their own deity. They want to become more of that deity. They want that power, right? So where does the chicken and the egg happen here, right? Is this if we get to Theurgy, does that make us the God self? Does the absence of our ego lead back to our God self? I don't know. That's a thing that for you to determine. And this is why we need to know this, which is why we're exploring these aspects. Where does it end for you? Again, the church is one way. It is not the way. Which means that you make your decisions. We want to provide you with information for your critical understanding, right? That critical thought is really central to what witchcraft is. I was not prepared for how much reading and research there was going to go into witchcraft at all. It just, suddenly I was like 60, 70 pages, 60, 70 books deep, and I was like, we're just off to the races, right? And then I jumped out of Llewellyn's category, which is great for pan-European practices, but largely ignores pretty much everything else on the planet. But it's a great starting point. It's really accessible. Same thing with Wicca. Why is Wicca so prevalent? Because it's super accessible, right? Why is Christianity so, prevalent? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of those is accessibility. You can throw a stone and probably hit a Christian. Please don't do that. We like Christians. We like all of our all divine people. They're great for different reasons. Now, we're going to go ahead and think about this. So, thaumaturgy focuses on manifesting in this corporeal plane. So, the witchcraft, this is why contemporary witchcraft falls in ordered thaumaturgy, because of the reason that this contemporary witchcraft, we're going to do spells for ourselves. We want to increase our own self, how we present ourselves, what we present to the community. And I'm going to tell you this right now, guys, if you want more of this community, you gotta show up, you gotta do the work, right? We would love to see more of you out here for this, but part of what this act alone is in that of itself ordered thaumaturgy. I'm giving you a presentation. Isn't all teaching just ordered thaumaturgy? I want to create a change and become more of that and provide that to others by some order or other, right? Kind of broad, and we're kind of skewing those terms a little bit. We're getting into some semantics, but this contemporary witchcraft, we do spells and rituals, ceremonies, and with a sequence, an order, sequence of behaviors, right? And we're doing that in the effort of improving our God selves, right? Most witches do that. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. Again, those terms don't really apply in my conversations. It's just one aspect. It's what tends to happen. When you do tarot, do you do tarot for yourself or do you do tarot for others? What's the purpose behind that? What's the method? Why do you want to do that? If you're doing pendulum work, are you helping other people? Do you even want to help other people? And that's your choice. What do you do with the tools within witchcraft, right? Witchcraft comprises a whole bunch of things, and we've talked at length before about what witch is, what craft is, what witchcraft is, and why that exists, right? And this sort of starts jumping out onto our next topic, vocation, religion, or both. What is witchcraft? So order and thaumaturgy, you're seeing Gardnerians, Dianics, Alexandrians, Santeria, hoodoo and voodoo. All of that is the manifesting of this physical plane. Hint, if you're going to watch this, another really interesting thing that we're going to talk about probably next month up here is that we're actually going to start talking about necromancy. Ooh, super scary, right? Don't worry about it. We'll talk about it. But, spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about necromancy, and it relates to this. But to do our magical craft, to figure out what we're doing and why we're doing it, we have to first figure out what the heck we're doing with it. Whether we're making ourselves more sanctified, or whether we're making ourselves our own sanctity, right? This is somewhat back to that Emil Durkheim kind of thinking. We are the ones that determine sacred or profane, right? Or is it that deities exist autonomously from us? It's a great question. Not going to answer that. That's your job. As witches, that's your job, is to determine these kinds of questions. Do you think that deities exist and you want to become more like them? Are you yourself your own deity? Which one's which? Did deities evolve because of humanity, or witches, or anybody who has some relationship with the divine? Or did the deities beget humanity? Which way did it go? Did it go both ways? In some instances, my personal stance is, I will tell you right now that I don't really know. The Mobius strip is the way that I think about this. From experience that I've had, specifically in my cheating method, one time only, but it really was, I ended up in the middle of nothing, right, in pure creation. And from that experience, I realized that I was looking around in this infinite cosmos, this blank void of pure consciousness. And I had no body, I had no physical form, I had no thought, I had no grounding or basis or reality that I could remember. And out there in the middle of this void, what I call the outside, I realized I was looking around, I was like, where is God? And I realized that the very fact that I was thinking that was me. What I was looking for in that void space, when I was looking around, trying to figure this out, contemplating this, I was thinking, where's God? It was me all along. In my perspective, from my experience, when I got to here and I had total ego death and all of that died and all of the stuff went away, I ended up as the Alpha and Omega. I re-jump-started everything that I'm experiencing now. Now I'm stuck with all these questions. I don't know the answer. Now I'm stuck at the, did I create all of the things? Does that make me a thaumaturgist? Does it make me a theurgist? Did I use Theurgy to get to thaumaturgy? I don't know. Which one beget the other? Hard to say. This is the critical thinking we want you to do. That's what the church is about. Our function is to provide these really uncomfortable questions that we want you to answer for yourselves. So this is really ascension, if you want to say that. And to become connected to everything, our thaumaturgy is basically elevating the self to a divine level. Both kind of get there, right? Kind of a pass-through, kind of a development of self or an evolution. Invocation, religion, or both. What's witchcraft? Thaumaturgy is a mode of contemporary witchcraft. Right now, all of these are bordering on thaumaturgy. Most of what witches do are focused on the self, the immediate surroundings, the people that are in their lives, the situations they want to change, whether they want houses or homes or cars or money or love or whatever it is. Suffering, if you want to do hexes and curses and all that jazz, that's fine. But that is all focused on the here and now, this corporeal plane. Does that elevate you? Is that where you want your witchcraft to be? Is that where you want to go? Or do you want to work more on this? And remember, this also has to do more with world service. So world service, don't get too crazy on this. World service basically just means, are you in service of others? Are you able to provide an example? Again, the clergy at the Church of Witchcraft, specifically my role, is one of the major roles that I play is that I'm developing basically the beacon of Theurgy. Right? My goal is to present that to others, to elevate others, to be this example and be this paragon of example, right? To show what Theurgy can do. And that works. We see this. I can't prove this 100%, but I can say that the anecdotal evidence is becoming overwhelming. There's too many instances, and we're talking in the order of over 500 different instances of various things that require spell work or witchcraft that I'm seeing a fundamental change within my world. And so I am seeing this happen. Albeit it's anecdotal, I get that, but at the same time, I keep seeing it, it's getting really hard to ignore that that's actually happening. But that's yours to determine, right? Thaumaturgy is also something that I'm doing, right? right now, this is the community. Doing things for the community is a thaumaturgic ordered spell. So is teaching to some degree, right? How much of my magic am I using to do these kinds of things? What does my witchcraft look like when I'm developing the community, developing the church, doing these videos? All of those things feed into my end goal spell, right? I tend to work from the physical, and then I move into the metaphysical, basically. I want to address what's happening right here. So for example, if I feel like I want differing health, if I want to improve my health, the first thing that I'm going to do is not a spell. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out a plan to eat better, or maybe I run more, or maybe I exercise more. Do your power here. That's our thaumaturgy, right? Spell, if you will, right? It's a set of instructions that we're using to change or do something or manipulate our environment. And then we get to these things, right? Again, taking care of that first altar is part of our concept here as well. And we need to be able to focus and be healthy here. Once I've run out of those things, then I might move into something more theurgic in nature, right? Very similarly, this is related to existentialism, right? The existentialist aspect has to do with anxiety is in everybody's life. Being alive causes anxiety. The friction between having and not having of any of those things, whether it's family or love or money or jobs or where you want to be in life or whatever it is, that anxiety exists. And it's the fuel for the engines of despair and death. So despairing about not having the things. I despair because I don't have a family. I despair because of other things. Or I despair because I don't have the job I want. Or I despair because I don't have the education I want. Or I despair because I do have those things. And then the despair becomes, am I worthy of those things? This is the same kind of thing here. The way that I address my own life and my own anxiety that exists for the various reasons that it does is that I turn to witchcraft. And I turned to these things and took that leap of faith. And that leap of faith, you can look this up later, Kierkegaard is the person that I'm talking about that talks a lot more about this. And yes, he was talking about it from a Christian lens, but from any sort of religious lens, right? That religious lens, I didn't know what else to do. I ran out of rationalization, reason, didn't fit anymore. I couldn't resolve the challenges, the anxiety in my life, that friction. And it was feeding more of my despair about existence. And how do you address that? That's why this matters. This is why witchcraft for me is a religion, because it is the reason and purpose by which I resolve my own anxiety. I talked a little bit about this in a much earlier sermon, but this is how I did it. I went through witchcraft. I took the leap of faith to say that these things exist fundamentally and provide moods and motivations for myself that provide the resolution or at least the diminishing of anxiety. That focus is that ray that I'm talking about earlier. We're bringing in that focus to our practice, to witchcraft's practice, whatever your spells are, whether it's here or if it's a higher purpose, right? This is why we get high magic and low magic. Low magic is just the physical, mundane, this plane. Our high magic is the stuff of legends and mind stuff and all of that symbolic logic that we're working with, right? That piece is so difficult to jump to, but that's why it's not bad or good. It's not bad or good. It's just whether we're focused on our ethereal plane or if we're focused on more of our physical plane. And those two are relevant for their own reasons. So I turned to witchcraft to address and diminish my own personal anxiety because I ran out of options. I didn't know what else to do, and so I did this. And that's why I bring it to you, why I bring it to the internet, why I started the church, why all of those things happened, because I wanted this for other people. It is my own thaumaturgic spell by order to affect the community, to improve them. That is the magic and witchcraft that I'm doing. That is the role of at least the hierophant, if not the rest of the clergy. And we would encourage the clergy to do this exact thing. This is why we exist. Not because of any other reason, not because we had some divine edict or whatever. I wanted this resolution to be available to others. So I made this available for others. That's why it happened. Nothing crazy about that, just what happened. So if you're wondering, why does the Church of Witchcraft exist? This is why. To help you reduce your anxiety, to increase your potency in witchcraft, to find those resolutions and those answers for yourself. Because I can't give them to you. I can lead you to stuff. I can give you a bunch of information. That's all I can do. I can be here as a sounding board, right? Our members are there on Discord, they're on Facebook, you can email us, you can have conversations. We're here to answer these questions, to struggle through this with you, because a lot of us are hashing through it still too. So this is focusing, our thaumaturgy is primarily focusing on egoic magical influence. As I've been saying, it enhances the self and state of physical affairs. it involves spells, rituals, and ceremonies tend to focus on this realm, specifically, this physical plane. We're not focused. Why? Do you ever do ceremonies where you're like, I'm going to make myself less ego and less desire-driven? No. How many of your sabbats are here? How much balance are you looking for yourself, not balance for the rest of the world, or the community that you reside in, or the coven that you're part of? The answer is, for me too, I'm hanging out here a lot of times. I'm not here. I do this in prayer in my morning and evening, right? This is something that I'm learning to practice myself for my own answers. The work is to bolster what is in the present. So this is working here now. This isn't working in your past, it's not working on your future. I mean, it might resolve some things in your past to help your present, arguably, and potentially help your future because your present is more focused. But this is more here and now, right? Past and future haven't happened yet. They're still in the ethereal metaphysical plane, arguably. I can see an argument for both of those things. And this, again, like I said, high versus low magic because of basically physical or metaphysical. There's a lot of terms for this. You'll see this across multiple religions, systems, traditions, what have you. They will say these things in different ways. Theurgy is about diminishing the needs or desires, so that's this guy up here, of the individual. Down here, Thaumaturgy is providing for the needs and the desires of the individual as well, but and providing for those. So diminishing your needs and desires and providing for those needs or desires. And by providing, I mean that you're focusing on that specifically. Iamblichus and Plotinus are two philosophers that I've referenced in Theurgy. Iamblichus and Plotinus have their own approaches to how to get to Theurgy. They don't talk as much about Thaumaturgy. It's more kind of connected than just how it's broken out here. And again, this system that I have, or at least this particular graph that is explaining some of this, came from Frater NOX on YouTube. So I did not create this, I am utilizing it as a teaching tool. So go look up those videos, by all means. You're going to have a hard time finding a lot of things about Thaumaturgy, but if you do, the thing that you're going to want to probably look for is anything in Gnosticism, because Gnosticism uses these two constituent principles in a lot of their religious approach, or their divine approach, because arguably maybe not a religion. So the question is that what are we doing with Thaumaturgy? Again, for me, it's this community. It's developing these things. That's the spell of community. And that's a super crucial thing that we need to be doing, is focusing on our community. Where is everybody, right? How do we support our witchcraft community? If you're wondering why there's, you know, difficulties with witches planning things, or different events, or somebody plans a sabbat and not somebody else's sabbat, or whatever it is, because you're not working together, you're not making that community spell, you're not witches together, you're witches apart, and then you're in combat between these things, and there's conflict, and there's anxiety, and again, how do you resolve that? If you're working in Thaumaturgy, you're going to have to work on Thaumaturgy initially to even resolve the fact that witches are having this specific, you know, challenge between groups. Or maybe the challenge for your Thaumaturgy comes in the fact that you just don't want to leave your house, right? Maybe you can't leave your house. There's a whole different variety of reasons why that might not be happening. But how do you want your community to be? What do you want community for yourself? Do you even want the community? If you don't want the community, don't ask for it, right? Because the people will show up to give you that community, to provide an opportunity or an access point to that community, if you're there to accept it. And that's a great thing too. But when you're asking for those things, expect that you're going to receive them. That's your choice to do that. How you represent this community. When you ask for things and then they appear and then they're not fed, you know what happens? They go away. They stop getting served. Those needs stop happening because nobody's taking advantage of the things, of the manifestation that they're doing. And collectively, as a church, we're able to manifest these things together. So for our members that are watching these videos in the past or the future or whatever, the biggest piece to this specific thing is that our effort as our members of the church, our congregation, is to do this thaumaturgic work together to build this community, the spell of the togetherness, right? Some of this I'm going to address also next month. So thaumaturgy is also strengthened by our theurgy, meaning that this is a reciprocal and ongoing equilibrium. I'm going to keep working on myself, my desire, my drive, my motivation, finding out what's going on in my own brain, and then I'm going to also use this theurgy to understand that there's better, bigger, broader connection to the divine, right? If I'm able to do this and have a healthy thaumaturgic reaction to these things, and I understand that there's theurgy, you're going to be bouncing between these two things. So there's a blend that's going on, and it's an ongoing equilibrium. You're going to be a little bit more thaumaturgic some days you'll be more theurgic, right? Sometimes you're going to be somewhere closer to the center. Maybe you'll be at a balance point. Those happen too, but it's an equilibrium. It's not just an either or. That's why I'm not really a big person about duality. I'm more about the polarity than anything else, because I come from a little bit of Kabbalistic background. So you can look at that in the Kybalion, or anything by Hermes Trismegistus. All of those books and things will talk more about that polarity as well. This can also be done with order or chaos. So thaumaturgy can be either chaos, which is those modern chaos. We're going to build something that we want to build out of the constituent components that exist, or we're going to get into this order piece of things. So you can do this in an ordered or chaotic way. Right now, most of our thaumaturgy that's working is mostly chaotic, which is why witches aren't coming together. We're not doing stuff together. And that specifically may only be for a Colorado situation. I'm not sure if that holds true for the rest of the US or for the rest of the world. I'm speaking from my experience in this state, that we're in this thaumaturgic kind of chaos mode. There's no planning. We're just trying to go about this thing. Each one of us is individually trying to develop and build more of a community, or whatever it is we're doing. However, we're doing that, and we're just missing each other, right? Some people have some ideas about one thing or another thing. Again, power of the church, right? Power of the Church of Witchcraft. We can develop more of this order to get into more of the thaumaturgy instead of just missing the ships in the night. We can actually effectively do more stuff. Once this is done, we can do more of this theurgy. We can reach those higher realms, those symbolic places, and reach even higher potency. In the church, we're seeing that between our members. We're seeing more potency happen. They're seeing more clair skills, so clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairgustance, all of those things. We're seeing more of those things. A synchronicity between each one of those witches. Consistently, we're seeing more of that connection. And it's because we did this. Now we're seeing that we can access this. Because we take care of one, we can take care of the other. To do this, we have to take care of our first altar. Once we can take care of our first altar, we can commune and congregate as members of the Church of Witchcraft, and then we can do this stuff. Longer conversation, but arguably, do you even need us to do this? Not really. But is it easier to have a focus group? I would say so, because then I don't have to try and work through all this myself. I think that covens should be talking about this. I think witches should be looking at these things. I think you should be asking these questions of your philosophy, anthropology, sociology. And I've said this before, but this is important for us to know, to focus our craft, to make the change we want and manifest the way we want to. Reducing ego is deconstructive. So if you don't really care for chaos or order, chaos, destructive. Order, constructive, right? We're going to break down things to get to our initial goal. We're going to break down things to get more in contact with our divine selves. Or we're going to take specific steps written down by somebody somewhere, and we're going to do that in an ordered way to get there. So there's options that you have in those, and they are both constructive or destructive. But what do you replace? So if we break everything down, or if we break everything down and we come down into this thaumaturgic kind of side, or if we break down everything and become more of the all stuff, what do you replace it with? You have all these broken parts, like a Lego ship, right? So if you build a Lego ship, and you've got all these pieces and stuff, it makes a whole, right? But if you take all that apart, what are those constituent components? Now you have the opportunity to build something brand new. What are you going to build? Are you going to build from a theurgic perspective? Did you break everything down with that connection to everything, or did you break everything down because of your own God self, right? And then you can take each one of those remaining bricks for that Lego ship and build a new Lego ship. Do you build the same one? Do you build something different? Do you improve on it? What do you build with it? Or maybe you just go, I'm just going to sweep all of that to the side, and instead, I'm going to replace it with something else. Maybe I'm going to replace whatever I broke down to diminish these kinds of things. Maybe I place something new in there, and that's the order of creativity. This is how Alpha and Omega is a thing, why you're the creator. Because you did these things. And when these things happen, you broke them down, and guess who creates the rest of it? You put them either together or you put something else in its place. You can put community in there, you could put religion in there, you can put whatever you want in there, but what is it that you're going to put in there? Why do you do that? Which is why we need to know this, so that we can do and increase the potency of our witchcraft. Because then we know that, like, we have a blank slate to draw on. We have a place to carve the marble, if you will, and make that beautiful statue in a metaphorical sense. So how do you implement thaumaturgic strategies? It's up to you. How do you want to do that? Do you want to break this down from here? Do you want to use contemporary witchcraft, Gardnerian, Dianic? What do you want to use, right? Are you a Thelamite? Are you going to try and access more of your Holy Guardian Angel stuff? Are you doing Order of the Golden Dawn, ceremonial style, and breaking stuff down? The tools of how you do thaumaturgy, how you do theurgy, is in the order of these mystery traditions, systems, religion. We can use those to our advantage to deconstruct these things for one of these two purposes or somewhere in the mixture of these. And that is the power of the witch. We work in this liminal state. As I've consistently said, witchcraft and all witches work in a liminal state. And that liminal state is this unknown. And this is hard. This is one of the biggest things that I realized, that from our community, what I've been asking everybody to do and what I've been encouraging people to do causes accountability. Accountability sucks and it's scary, because that means if I don't get it right, I'm on the chopping block. I didn't do this work. I didn't do this. The I of me, right? And that's hard, to be accountable, to know that you just missed the mark. And the thing is, you're gonna miss the mark. And I want you to miss the mark, because through that we understand how we can fail upwards, right? Because there's no failure. There's different forms of that building. There's different forms that you can put that into. Maybe you break everything down and you do it with contemporary witchcraft, and then you start using tools. You start using tarot to understand, or you start using some other occult technology to explain what's happening internally, that shadow work, arguably modern therapy, but besides the point, you can use the tools, the occult technologies that exist, because witchcraft doesn't own tarot, doesn't own the runes. It uses those things in a concentrated manner. In the effort, though, of what? The effort of Theurgy, the effort of Thaumaturgy, somewhere in the middle. That's why I'm bringing this up, so that you know how to use that occult technology for what purpose. And then you can build from there. And that blank slate is the liminal phase, the state of pure creation. When you're just staring at a block of marble, like any of the ancient artists used to do, they stare at a block of marble and they go, you know what, that's going to be a deity. I'm going to show the world, I'm going to carve a deity out of this. I'm going to take what's in the marble that I can see, and I'm going to move that out. Because that's just witchcraft, in my opinion. Same thing here. You're going to break these things down using some of these methods, the occult technologies, and then you're going to purely create from that point. And that is your liminal state. That is the potency. Knowing these things provides that understanding of liminality, or those liminal spaces, the between states. And that's why I say that witchcraft, and witches specifically, when you're taking on the term of witch in your own life, one of the constituent parts of that definition, witches work in a liminal state. That's why it happens, is because of this reason. When you break something down, you have all the parts. Even if you haven't broken it down, if you just have a whole bunch of parts laid out in front of you, it could be anything. You could make anything of it. It is unknown, a between state, between that which has been done, that which hasn't been done, and then working somewhere in between those. That's a witch's liminal state. That is the power that witches have. That's where they get it from, which is different than other religions, other approaches, because those are saying, oh, somebody else will do that for you. Witchcraft's scary and hard because I'm accountable, because I have to make that choice. I have to go, oh, I see a whole bunch of pieces out here, and then I have to choose to do something or not do something. And if I choose to do something or not, whichever I choose, I have to either live with the consequence that nothing happened, and now I'm stuck where I'm at, and I can't ever, and I get locked into anxiety and concern. Or I choose to build something, and it sucks. Or maybe I build something and it's amazing. And that's the point. Our liminal state allows us to do that, but it makes us accountable. Witches are specifically generating from their first altar and taking in that magic, that liminal state from that liminal phase, and then producing something from themselves. So if you're wondering, how do I do witchcraft? You have to be accountable to your own witchcraft. Generate the power from that first altar. Clarify it, become it, do it. And that's why it's hard. That's why I see in all the forums, people say, oh, just read these books. What does that even mean? Why are they not talking about this? How you deconstruct things? Where does potency come from? Why does witchcraft function? And maybe it's all in my head, maybe it's all in your head, but hey, if we can get together and have some sort of group coherence, we can at least sort of argue that it exists. But this is what witchcraft is. It's this. And I'm not saying that I'm just one answer, right? Witchcraft could be a lot of things, but all of these manifest in different ways. Gardnerian looks different than the Azteca schools. The right head path looks different. The modern chaos do different stuff. But they're all essentially doing something in here. And from our perspective as witches and with the Church of Witchcraft, our members, we want this. We want to break these down. We want to work in that little phase and be really comfortable in that accountability, that failure upwards, to develop these miraculous things. The wonder working that we're seeing in Thaumaturgy, the self-sanctity that we can see here, right? This is why we have these spells. And so when we start doing spell maps and that sort of thing, we're looking at, are we doing Theurgy, are we doing Thaumaturgy? Specifically, markers on top. I've written this down before, but this comes to, I'm just going to abbreviate this, Theurgy, Thaumaturgy. And from here, we decide to do basically some sort of spell work, and then we have different branches of that coming into. If I can remember my past graph, charm, enchant, jinx, hex, curse. And I'm going to abbreviate this over here, so C and E, as well as our jinx, hex, and curses. Question for you, though. For us, we're doing Theurgy or Thaumaturgy, and we're going to do charms and enchantments in one of these facets, or we're going to do these jinx, hexes, and curses for the purpose of God self or egoless self. This is our spell map. This is what tells us, and once we know how we work in liminal states, then we can target where our spells are going to, what our rituals are for, what our ceremonies for, because we know that we're trying to aim for henosis or apotheosis, the Theurgy or Thaumaturgy. And then we can aim here. During Mabon, or the autumn equinox, in my specific tradition, system, long story, is more of this, I'm doing some of this theurgic work, but I'm also focusing right now on this Theurgy. For me, I'm going to be doing and teaching how to hex. Let's see if I can do this upside down. Okay, nope, I can't. Not even gonna try. So I'm going to do a thaumaturgic spell, right? Apotheosis, the protection of self. We're trying to hex ourselves in the effort with apples. I'm going to teach you how to do that. We're going to be doing that in Colorado Springs, September 24th. You can look up all of our stuff on our calendar, but I'm going to be teaching how to do a thaumaturgic hex for the self, to break something down. And I'm using that with contemporary witchcraft. This breakdown then gives us more free so that we can work, well, actually I'm going to do it up here. These things are linked. See if I can even do a sideways 8. Let's see here. Limnoskip, or the infinite. This goes on forever. The infinity symbol is a Mobius strip, a continuous loop that that's always the same path. Thaumaturgy begets Theurgy, Theurgy begets Thaumaturgy. The act of hexing oneself to break down a constituent component on a physical plane frees us up to work on our theurgic self, to become more divine, because now we're removing some of those desires, that anxiety, and diminishing that. And that diminishment allows us to do this theurgic work and allows us a path to get there. The first altar, that first point of origin, outwards as a ray with a focus and intent. And that's why those two things beget each other. That's why one doesn't come necessarily with the other. They're connected and they're interwoven as such. See if I can balance that marker again. So we have a duty to our first altar, to our communities. Our community duty is our first altar. The first altar allows us to free up. When we do these things, we take care of our desires. The things that are motivating us, that are becoming poisonous to us, or not, or barrier behaviors to what we want to do. So you want to go to work, and you have problems with waking up early, and it's a whole big bummer. You don't want to go to work, you end up losing your job, right? How can you do the rest of your life with that, right? So being aware of your first altar is a thaumaturgic work. And that thaumaturgic work begets more of that community. But you can't be healthy without focusing on that first altar. You can't do this cool stuff with Theurgy if you're not aware of why you're using your first altar for that. So we have a duty to our first altar to enhance our community, to provide for our community. That's the clerical role that we have here at the Church of Witchcraft. That's the point. We have to keep working on our first altar. I'm not going to get it right every time. But every day I wake up, I try my best, and I activate. I'm not even going to say try. I engage in thaumaturgic work and theurgic work every single day. I do a rising prayer, I do an eventide prayer every single day. And the reason is to focus that ray, to take care of that first altar, because I have absolutely amazing privilege that allows me to do that. I've worked for myself, I've got a lot of my own needs met, all of my physical thaumaturgic kind of needs met for my own self. So I don't have to worry about those things, they just are there. And that allows me the privilege to work on things that are in the theurgic realm. Not everybody can work on the theurgic realm. It's much harder to do that without that kind of privilege, but everybody can do it. Everybody is able to do theurgy and thaumaturgy at any level. You can do this and even for me, because of my chaotic life at the moment, because I haven't addressed that, I'm not taking care of that aspect of my first altar, causing more chaos, so I'm ending up more over here right now. But I'm working on it, because that's my duty to the first altar. But as we work through those things, I can provide more, and I want to address that. But in my chaotic life, the theurgy that I do, the prayers, I want to be able to do 30 minutes every morning and every night. I can't do it. I'm too busy. And the reason I'm too busy is because of my own choice. I chose to do those things, those obligatory things. And because of that, my theurgy had to kind of diminish a little bit and adjust. Any action trying to do that, whatever step that is, goes back to our conversations from previous sermons about habit building, where we have a cue, a routine, and a reward, or an antecedent, a behavior, and a consequence. It's important for me to do this theurgic work. So even if it's only 3 minutes a day, 3 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes at night, even if it's 1 minute, if I just go, I think about it, and I move on. Even that is at least something to take care of that, to the best of my abilities. So don't overthink this. Don't think you have to like join a monastery. There's no such thing as a witchcraft monastery. It doesn't exist. Maybe we'll start one in the future if you are so inclined to do, but any amount of those things. Our theurgy comes in when we're doing esbats, our full moon, our dark moon, our new moon, when we're doing spells, but we need to know why we're doing it, right? This liminal state allows us to choose to do these things. So come and learn how to do some of these hexes. Maybe it's not an apple, maybe it's something else. Maybe we use a sour jar or whatever. We talk about these materials, and these come in many different forms. Learn how to do some of this theurgy. Come work with us to develop the thaumaturgy community that we're doing. Help us develop this theurgy, because once we build that strong base and community, the members can access more of this theurgy. The harder things about your anxiety and your despair and all of those things. And those are the ways to help us do that for the people who don't necessarily have that same level of privilege, that they can just do this whenever. The church is here to help at least basically fast track your understanding of how you do this deconstruction. And that's why we accept all of these modalities, because of the reason that your modality is going to help you do this. And we want to strengthen your ability to break these down to constituent components so that you can be your own creator. That's the potency of the witchcraft that we're doing. That's the potency of what this is. And I know that there seems to be a paradox between these theurgic and thaumaturgic work. Do I desire to do this? Probably. But again, it's the intent piece to that. Is this a vocation, a religion, or both of these things for you? For me, it's kind of all of the above. It's a vocation, a calling to do this. I have a calling to operate this, to operationalize these concepts, to provide this to the rest of the community as my thaumaturgic ordered spell. Because I want people to have this access, to reduce and diminish some of their anxiety, to give themselves the answers themselves, to find a way to do that. That's why we do witchcraft, because we have this ability to be creators. We do witchcraft to create in a complete freedom zone. To be able to do that is really difficult, but that's why we're here, to support you. When you feel like you've fallen flat on your face because your accountability sucked and whatever you built isn't there, this gives us some more of that understanding of how we're going to build, how we're going to deconstruct, and why we're building. And when you fall down, because you will, like I have, and I'm going to in the future, that's fine. But that's why the members are here. It's why the church is here, for that reason, to support you when the accountability goes a little bit haywire. So if you're wondering what protection is in witchcraft, my idea of protection in witchcraft, which I normally don't talk about, but that protection piece, people think, oh, I've got to protect myself from a deity. I've got to protect myself from an entity. Oh, I might summon a demon. Oh, no, some terrible thing's going to happen, or the law of threefold law, or maybe a crazy bird is going to come down and peck my eyes out because I did something terrible. The point being is that is the manifestation. We're powerful manifestors. We're manifestors because we're able to break these things down with our contemporary witchcraft. We use those occult technologies to do that, and the danger is losing yourself, losing why you matter to yourself. The danger is a broken first altar that's untended. That's the danger. Protection is understanding how to generate those things. The protection the church offers essentially is to pick you up and be there with you as you explore this, as this gets broken down and messes up and gets weird. Losing your own sense of self is also its own gift. because you can generate so many cool things from here. But that's really scary, and that's why we're here. We're here to support that. That's why the church exists, for that reason. And again, this is about our needs and desires, right? We're trying to eliminate needs and desires, or refine them perhaps. In this, we're trying to feed those desires. They're both purposeful. Do them both. Explore them both. Do all of these things, right? Get a little weird with some chaos thaumaturgy. Like, who knows what you're going to do? Maybe you're going to go worship some random deity and just go nuts on that. Maybe you just start doing some left-hand path stuff. That's fine too. Maybe start doing some yoga. Try all of these things. Find what helps you break these down to help you find that liminal phase between yourself so you can do these awesome, cool manifesting things in your own lives. And then the question really becomes, where are you focused? Why do you want to do these things? This, for me, is the biggest answer that I have to how we generate our potency, what our reasoning is, and gives me the understanding of how I'm going to do these things. Your charms and enchantments are going to look different than mine. Maybe, depending unless you're a celestial witch and you come and hang out with me and talk about that. Your jinx, hexes, and curses are going to look different. Am I going to curse a person, a family, a concept, an iteration, time period, whatever it is? These are going to be accessed differently through your deities. Maybe you work in a Hellenistic pantheon. You're going to be working with deities from the Hellenistic pantheon, all the Greek stuff. Maybe you're doing it through all the Roman stuff. Maybe you're doing it through all the Egyptian, or Judaic, or Zoroastrian, or you're doing it through any of those things. That's why these are going to look different. But they're all essentially doing one of these things to break them down, right? Play with this, explore it. And when this gets a little weird for you, the church will be here to help you through that, to walk you through that. And all of us at the church, the members, all of the congregation members, as well as all of the clergy, that's what we're here for. Email us, call us, get on Discord, whatever it is, and go, man, I tried this and it imploded. We're here to talk through that. Or maybe you're like, I want to try this thing. What else are people's experiences? That's what we do this for. That's why we want the community to be here. So I want you all to show up and be here for this thing. Because we're only as strong as we are together. And this is what we're doing. This is why the Church of Witchcraft exists, because there's nothing focused until, as far as I'm able to understand. There's some Temple of Witchcraft, there's some other components and stuff, but they have a specific Wiccan flair, or they have a specific eclectic sort of tradition to them, or some sort of system along those lines, but it's not necessarily focused on how we generate witches. How do witches create things? There's a lot of errant pagan groups, earth worship groups, and those are fantastic for community. But are you doing religion for just the community? Because you don't need a religion for community. You can just have community without the religion at all. But then the question for me became, why do I want religion? What's the purpose? And that's a hard question to answer, but that's what we're here for, to help you break these things down, to explore those things. So come hang out with us. Be the things that you want to see. The things that we see all the time on Reddit, that we see on Facebook. We want to be here. We want these things to happen and exist. They're happening. They're here. We're here for you. But we need you to be here for us as well, because otherwise, what's our point? We can write books about this all the time, but it's more impactful for us to have this sort of connection. So please join and hang out with us and ask these questions. Challenge us on these things. I want to be proven wrong. I want these challenges for my own self, that give and take. I'm ready to be accountable, and I'm showing you guys how to do this and how you can be accountable too. Take your time. Being accountable is a courageous and brave act. It's difficult to do because you're going to be wrong. I've been wrong. I've been wrong, plenty of times, and I'm okay with that. I want that to happen because I can't improve. I can't be there for my community. I can't do order thaumaturgy if I haven't tried my own self. And that's why we need you as well. And each one of you can work together and build that together. And with that, thaumaturgy. Use your thaumaturgy. Use your theurgy. Combine these things, find out how you do that, how you access the divine, what deities you work with, what elements, whatever it is, however you do it. Find out why you're doing that. Figure out how to break this down. Build your liminal states, connect with others. We're open for that collaboration. Be open to that collaboration because you will fundamentally increase how potent your life is and what your witchcraft can do when this becomes more ordered. And like I said, next time we're going to talk a little bit about necromancy. Necromancy is a fun topic. No, it's not just raising the dead. It's going to be some weird stuff, but it's good. We're also going to be talking about this specifically how we do a spell of connection as well, and what that means. But to do that conversation, we needed to know all of this stuff. So once we have this down, Now we can go talk about how we do some more cool stuff. So if you're wondering when we're going to do spells together, this is what we need to know first. And even if you don't know it, even if you only have a vague iteration, some element of this will exist. And this is going to take all of your witchcraft to a new level, a new potency level, to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. All of the answers, explore them, try them. Thanks again for watching all these videos. In the comments below, share your thoughts, talk about it. You know, we encourage that. Like our videos, share them, all of that stuff. Hang out on our calendar, come to our SBOTs. We would love to see you and do more of this. We're seeing some really excellent changes, and by all means, we'll see you in the near future.